Welcome to Dark Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have with me once again, Espen Kane. Kane, good to have you back on.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Right on, man. So today we're going to be talking about the Black Book of Azathoth, and I'm fortunate enough to have a signed copy that Kane sent me here. Um, you guys can go ahead and get a signed copy as well. Just go ahead and message Kane through Facebook, get a hold of him that way. Other than that, you can click on the link below this video description and you can get this off of Amazon, and that link will be there. But yeah, Kane, so this book right here, first of all, I want to ask you where your interest in the Necronomicon.
It has a call to it. It's what they call the call of Cthulhu almost. There's a drawing to it. And it's not myself alone that has felt this. There are people that feel this draw to this current. And there was something about it, and reading through Lovecraft and really taking in everything and all the essence of what he was writing and the feeling of it all. And there's something alluring to it, and it's hard to really put your finger on what that is. And, that's one of the reasons why I had written the Black Book, was for people who actually felt that call to work with these particular beings. So it was something that just naturally drew me in. And they I say, as in previous authors who worked in the current 23, as they call it, they have warned many warnings, that obsession can occur with this particular current, which I've found in individuals. And I even had to pull myself back a little bit from that, because it's something that you want more and more and more and more of, and it becomes obsession. So there is a danger to it to some degree,
Right.
but it just held so many dark mysteries. And one of the things about the book that's refreshing, is you have, generally within the grimoire tradition, religion, whatnot, that you have good and bad, heaven and hell, good and evil, this kind of this duality. And with the old ones in this particular system, it's far older. It encompasses both. It's beyond good and evil, and in that way, it's very refreshing to approach that.
Yeah, I know what you mean when you say that it's alluring. It kind of pulls you in. There's like, I mean, when I study it, I tend to go down this rabbit hole and kind of just want to just read everything on it. Um, Now, what drew you to, aside from your interest in the Necronomicon, to compile this book together right here specifically?
Like with all books I write, I wanted it to
Yeah.
exist and it didn't.
Right.
That's essentially how it started. I wanted the tome. I wanted the book that had all the mysteries and all the secrets and all the lore and all the history, and it just didn't exist. It's like you had little bits and pieces here and there throughout, and it's throughout history, it's throughout different writings, but there's never been one grimoire. I mean, if you talk about like the Simon Necronomicon, it's a completely different system. It's not related to Lovecraft. So it wasn't that. I wanted Lovecraftian, and that was the thing about this book, in my opinion, so far that I have seen. It is the most complete, true Necronomicon that exists in its own right. And I say that because it deals with the original 8 old ones that came to Lovecraft through dream sequence. Now, you have other authors like August Derleth, and others who have added to the mythos and added entities, such as Hastur. Hastur is not an original Lovecraft entity or god. It created in the mythos, and a lot of people will work with Hastur and deal with them, and all these different things. I'm not saying that those experiences aren't real, but what I wanted to do was create a complete, true to Lovecraft 100% book dealing with the old ones, his interaction with them, or their sequences that he had interacted with them, and how to interact with them through a magical system.
Mhm. Okay. Now, in this book, you made a quote, and I'd like you to explain it to the viewers who are watching who have not read this book. You said something along the lines of, in Christianity, as people must go through Jesus to get to the Father, in this system, people must go through Nyarlathotep to get to the old ones. Can you explain that a bit to those who have not read this book?
In my understanding and working with the current and the old ones, Nyarlathotep is essentially the ambassador. He is essentially what has been described by Lovecraft as the soul of the old ones. So encompasses all their aspects, but is the one who interacts with man and interfaces with man. And through that, it's almost like once you access him and work with him, you have access to the others. And it's a way of initiation, almost, is working with him and getting to know that system, that feeling, that current, and broadening those workings with him, and then expanding out through that. And that's one of the reasons why it's an initiation ceremony included in the book, with Nyarlathotep, as well as there's pacts that one can do with Nyarlathotep and whatnot. But it's essentially making that connection and interface so that you're able to access some of these other ones, because it's like working with Cthulhu as an example without going through Nyarlathotep. It's a lot of images that don't necessarily make sense, Right. So it's kind of like he's almost like a translator for the current, and interface for that current. So It makes it easier to work with them if you work with him first.
And then you also have to contact Yog-Sothoth to open the gateway. Is that right?
Absolutely. So yeah, he is the gateway, as a lot of like Papa Legba and many other gatekeepers. Essentially, he is the gate. He knows the way through to access the old ones.
Okay. Now, there's an aspect of this book that I want us to discuss, and it involves the Trinity of Triangles. Now, I'm going to read from a section here in the book. It's from the chapter on the angles of the in-between. So it says, quote, "Within angles, there is energy known as static energy that is tightly compressed as a spring. It is much as a twig held between two fingers that begins to bend from the pressure, but not yet break. This energy is ready to be released and directed under the right conditions. If the correct angles are utilized in conjunction with the correct vocal vibrations, the angles are snapped and the static energy released, thus opening doors to other dimensions that are unlocked for travelable to and from another point." And you mentioned that there's the Trinity of Triangles that is in relation to that statement. Can you explain a bit about the Trinity of Triangles, which I believe is right here on the cover?
It is. It's also my necklace. Yeah, right. It's a very powerful triangle of evocation, if you will. It's was utilized in this system, but it can be utilized in other systems. People can take that template and incorporate it into their own practices that are completely unrelated to the old ones. I see it as a technology. Angles being the source of that, where I mean, you see it in all kinds of magical works. You see the angles, the sigils, the construction of these. There's power that inherently lies within angles. Even LaVey talks about it before, in haunted houses where angles, you produce more activity. There's an inherent energy within them. When you look at a design, you want to trace it with your eyes over and over and over again. There's an energy within that, and it's tapping into those angles, tapping into that energy, and releasing that energy through your intent, be it also through vocal vibration of these things in conjunction with each other to open up this gateway, or to make a zone or area where communication can be had with these beings.
Yeah, you you make a statement about the triangle, similar to what you said. You said the triangle can be seen as a circuit board that requires energy to be activated. Likewise, the circle acts as a generator that amplifies and enhances the collective personal energy of the magician, allowing him to transfer that energy into the triangle, in effect, turning it on. So I definitely see what you're saying when you say that this is a technology.
I mean, absolutely. And that's the thing about chaos magic in general is looking at all the different methods that were been used through different cultures and magical societies and seeing a commonality within all of them. What are they all using? What are they all working with? Evocation, angles, sigils. These things are very, very in the forefront of all of these different traditions. You know, when I work with magical sigils, I work with salt. I infuse that salt with my intent, and it's so when you're in a magical circle and you lay out the triangle before you, it's not just lines on the ground. You know, you have infused it with your energy and with your intent, and you brought it alive. And that's the idea of these designs in conjunction with the sorcerer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now let's talk a bit about the Tower of Koth. You have a chapter dedicated to that. Now I'm just going to read a statement from that chapter. It says, "It has been said that the great void the tower rests above is in fact the Unsephiroth Da'ath and leads into the darkness of the fathomless chasm that must be crossed in order to reach the tree of knowledge, the dark side of the Kabbalistic tree of life, also known as the tree of death or the tree of night. Once this chasm is crossed and the destination is reached, access to the hollow shells of the Qliphoth and what have become known as the tunnels of Set may be achieved. In my experience, the Black Tower of Koth and vaults of Zin reside in a parallel reality to Da'ath and the tunnels of Set, as in the vaults of Zin were a shadow self of the already shadow tunnel of Set. Would you say that the Tower of Koth is often overlooked among students and practitioners?
I do. It is a very interesting place on an astral level to be and experience. Like you had read there, I believe that it is within what they consider Deoth in that space, and it's in a parallel zone. It's not there, but it is there. They're combined in that area, you know, and it's really interesting to hear the vaults of Zen and the tunnels of Set and going through this. And as well, within Deoth, there's Kronzon 333. And you find a lot of correlation with that in the Haunter as well. And so there's a lot of things that intermesh, as Lovecraft has done with much of history. But you can find, you know, his teachings and his writings, even Yazidi scriptures. You know, there's things that are identical. I mean, uncannily identical. And so these things are in a shadow zone. They're
Right.
within our reality, and they're also very slightly different there, you know. And so it's an interesting correlation.
It definitely is. I mean, you mentioned the vaults of Zin. There's also a section where you say the vaults of Zin exist. They lie within the grayscale twilight of the heart and mind, just outside of vision, where the spirit sometimes wanders in the dead of night. I thought that was an interesting statement right there.
Yeah, they're very, you know, the vaults of Zen are very organic in my experience with them.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting experiences there, and as I've written in the book, some of the things that I've experienced.
Okay, now let's talk about the Haunter of the Dark. You had mentioned them just a bit earlier. So here's a picture in the book here he has of the Haunter of the Dark. It says here in that chapter, the Haunter of the Dark is a servitor of Nyarlathotep, as Nyarlathotep is the servitor of the Old Ones. The Haunter brings great terror, but with it great gnosis. In essence, dealings with the Haunter are a bit like walking on eggshells, as the Haunter has been known to turn on the magician if kept too long or disrespected. And Can you expand a bit on the Haunter of the Dark for those who are interested in this book?
A lot of scholars in this current have said that it's an incarnation or a form of Nyarlathotep, and I have found them to be very separate entities. Whereas Nyarlathotep is easier to work with, The Haunter, is, like I said in the book, it's kind of like walking on eggshells. It almost reminds me, in a way, of working with some of the Jinn of the Book of Smokeless Fire. It's a very uneasy situation to be in.
Yeah.
Very carefully handled.
Mhm.
I had I was out in Utah with co-editing many years ago. We were filming a video course for the book, and we've been working in the current every day. We're doing 12-hour days, doing the filming and whatnot. Um, and I had a really crazy, intense encounter one night with the Haunter after I had done some evocations that night, and very intense. Um, Again, something to be cautious with, very cautious with. But as I said in the book, you can gain a lot of insight and work with them in that way.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely something to be careful with. Um, Now you have a chapter on banishings, but in banishings there is this statement here. It says the seal of the invisible old ones. And I'm going to show everyone the seal here, right there. That's what it looks like. Now I'm going to explain a bit about the seal. It says the seal of the invisible old ones, and for unknown reasons lost in time, they fear it greatly. The seal can be used in various ways, from being engraved upon a talisman one would wear to keep these dark forces at bay, to being traced upon the ground within a magical circle to clear an area of working, if one is at first hesitant when using this tradition, or if one chooses to clear their temple of old one energy. Now, what would you say? Do you have any idea uh, what it is about uh, this symbol that the old ones tend to just stay away from? They don't like about it.
I could not tell you. It just happens to be that is the symbol that
Yeah.
repels them. It's not recommended. I mean, I put a banishing in there because Lovecraft had incorporated this into his lore, into his systems of things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but if you're going to be working with this current, it's highly offensive. It's highly
Yeah.
offensive to the, you know what I mean? So it's not like you shouldn't really be using it in the first place. Unless there is like wait a minute, this isn't for me. I got all this stuff around me. Let me clear this kind of situation. But it's really, if you're working with them, why would you want to keep that pay?
Right.
So
I guess you
it's
could go ahead.
I was just saying it's got a bit of a contradiction in that.
It, well, I thought I had never come across that in study material for the Necronomicon. I thought that was interesting because I guess it's kind of like for people who just want to leave the Necronomicon alone and don't want to go back to it. I mean, I guess it wouldn't be good to use it and then a week later say, oh, by the way, guys, I'm sorry about that. I
Right.
need help with this.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. It doesn't really work that way. It's kind of like, if you're feeling this call and you're willing to go into this more and go into this current and into this realm, be ready for it. It's almost like Book of Smokeless Fire, where there aren't any banishings. So it's like, be sure that you want this and be sure that this is really something that you're after.
Yeah, there's no
Uh,
going back.
right. And there is here, but it's like once you do that, like you said, a week later, I wouldn't be, working with them again or trying to work with them again. And it leaves a bad taste in the mouth, if they say, as they say.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Now, there's a rite in this book called Consuming the Blackened Serpent. Um, I just want to read a little bit on that chapter here. There's a paragraph. This rite is also very powerful in that it connects the magician to the five elements in a method suitable for left-hand path practitioners. Cthulhu is represented through the use of water, Shub Niggurath through the force of earth, Azathoth by air, Yog Sothoth by fire, and Nyarlathotep by spirit, encompassing all earthly elements. And this is a rite where I think it's the one where you're sitting in the circle, and then Nyarlathotep comes in the form of a serpent, enters through you, feels your essence, and kind of changes you.
Right.
This rite, is this something that kind of pieced together with literature, or was it something that was kind of channeled? How did this write come about?
That is an adaptation for this current from a write in the Book of Smokeless Fire. And that came to me when I was actually in meditation at my altar. Generally, when in meditation, I clear my mind of all things as much as I can, and find that piece of being outside of time, if you will. But that particular morning, I used to do it in the mornings. That particular morning, I had just a rush of images come flood my mind, and I just let that go. And the whole rite came to me visually, and I jumped up and ran to my computer and wrote the wrote the ritual down, and it came out in that form. Now it's been adapted for the Lovecraftian current in this, but in and of itself, if you look at the original, it's something that's good to do. I'd say every about 3 months, and to reconnect in that current.
Kind of refreshes everything there. Okay, now a bit about the Haunter of the Dark. Right here, this says, great danger lies within dealings with the Haunter, as he demands monstrous sacrifices and will obtain them as he sees fit if none are offered, which is not at all recommended, as the sacrifice may be the Black Magician himself or someone close to them. As the vaults of Zin are a shadowed reality of the tunnels of Set, so too is the Haunter a shadow self of the demon Turanzon. Turanzon resides within the black abyss of the non-Sephira Da'ath, located below the Tower of Coth, which is located between Chokmah and Baina, and directly below Kether, on the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. The Great Black Abyss within Da'ath is a gateway to the Tree of Night, knowledge, and death, and is guarded by an entity known as Turanzon. Now, how did you come across this entity, Turanzon, being tied in with the Haunter of the Dark?
There were so many similarities as far as the description of the being itself, and was a gatekeeper as Turanzon in that abyss. Once crossing over into this realm, what the magician in the Kabbalistic tradition must have enough energy to make that trip across the abyss, to get to the Tree of Night. And in the middle of that, in that dwelling zone, is Turanzon. Again, with the tunnels of Set and the vaults of Zin, and we have Turanzon, and we have Turanzon, and we have the Haunter of the Dark. There's so many parallel similarities in that. So that's how I've come to interpret him and come to understand him.
Right.
But again, as Turanzon, it's like something you must defeat or overcome to bypass, and that could be in many forms of the magician themselves and their own inner turmoil of what they're going through, to be able to actually make it to the other side.
Okay. All right. Now, towards the end of the book, there is an immense amount of scholarship on Nyarlathotep that is not found in any other book tied in with the Necronomicon. What was it like compiling all this info for Nyarlathotep? I mean, there's an amazing amount of scholarship.
Yeah, it was daunting, but again, like I said before, there were bits and pieces here and there throughout these publications, throughout time, through different people's encounters or what, but they're all spread out. They're all spread out, and so it's like I said, I really wanted everything in one place, in one book. I wanted to be able to connect all the dots and put it together in one tome, and that's what resulted from that. Again, many different authors, many different systems, very obscure manuscripts or books that a lot of the information came from. So it wasn't just me imagining stuff. It's just like I'm looking at other authors' works with this particular entity and putting it all into one place, and again connecting these dots, making these comparisons. So it was. I love writing. To me, it's like a big sandbox. When I have information like this, it's like I see it all, and now I get to be able to put it into a readable, understandable form and gather all these little bits and pieces and put them there so that the reader can get the most out of it, as well as myself.
Right.
I don't write books for people. I write books for myself.
Right.
Like I want it to exist. It doesn't exist. So I'm going to make it exist. And
Right.
so that's
It's
how it
definitely helpful. I mean, when going through all the info of the Necronomicon, the different books, this is very unique in that it kind of saves a lot of time and work piecing together a lot of this stuff. Now, in closing, I think this book has been it's kind of taken on legendary status because I remember over the years different people mentioning this book. I'd be on live streams and someone would mention it and working with it. So, I finally went ahead and you sent me this copy, read through it. Very good stuff. Anyone who's watching at home, go ahead and pick this up. The link again below in the video description. You can go ahead and get it off Amazon. Or if you want a signed copy, you can go ahead and contact Qayin himself on Facebook. Facebook
absolutely.
Messenger, and he'll go ahead and hook you up. Qayin, thank you for your time. It's been it's been very interesting. Is there anything that you're working on right now that you want to go ahead and let the public know about?
I am slowly compiling a very personal book to my kind of a long story, but my original founding tradition that I began myself when I was just a teenager. Mm-hmm. And it's always been in my life, and it's working with moon magic.
Okay.
So it's dealing with the kind of a darker side of that, as well as with some fallen angels that are in that area or connected to that. So it's a very personal, like I said, very personal book coming from me, and so I'm taking an extra amount of time with it, really not rushing anything, kind of putting a lot of my own stories or my own experiences, my own past of how I came to be almost in even the introduction and going into things. So it's not a book that say I want this to exist and I'm going to work through the system and put it out. This is really coming from more of my heart, if you will.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll have to have you back on once you go ahead and release that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, once again, thanks for your time. Everyone pick this up, hit the link below in the video description. And everyone who's watching, like and subscribe to Dark Sorcery.